In this session, we'll continue to develop our three constructs that we currently have begun, which is the basement, the main, and the upper level. We will also, in subsequent videos, begin to do and work on the site construct, where we develop some of the site features, including the property lines. What we want to make sure is, since this is a different session that we had previously, what I want to make sure is, number one, is whether I have overwritten the current project. Now, by going to my project navigator and beginning the project thus, then I can find out whether I am using the correct current project. In this case, it happens to be, there's all my levels set up, my constructs that I've been working on right now. As you can tell, the main has a lock next to it, which means that I have it currently open. So what I want to make sure is that I have all the items that I need to develop this plan, and that includes all the red lines that I've had. So what you need to make sure is that whether you have a hard copy or you have a PDF file like I have here, that you have it available for you so that you can be referencing the changes that you need to do. What I'm going to go ahead and do here is, if you can see right here, I have all of my red lines for all the levels that I'm going to be working on right here. So let's go back to the main level. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move it out of my way. I have a two-screen setup in here, so I'm moving it to my second screen for easy reference. So once that's available, I can begin to develop my layers and start bringing in items and blocks into the drawing. Now, there's a couple of ways that we could do this. For example, if I wanted to bring in appliances and so on, I could go to the Home tab and go to my tools and go to the Design Tools, and I can go to the Content Browser and begin to get a lot of the blocks that I'm going to be using from there. That could include everything from, as we've already seen, doors and windows, but we can also do plumbing fixtures, appliances, etc. Now, sometimes what most architects will have is they will have a set of blocks all set up so that they can access them from either a drawing block file that contains all their common blocks that they use. It may also contain a lot of the layers that they want to use. Once again, that's something that we could technically begin to do here. We could go into our Layers tab right in there, and as you can see, we have a certain number of limited layers here. What we want to do is, if we have a template file or if we have something that does not include these layers already, we may be able to access another drawing to begin to populate this with all the layers that we would commonly use in a residential project. So let's take a look at what we could do in here. For example, I could just go right in here, and if I wanted to create a fireplace layer, I would have to go to New Layer and begin to lay it all out in there using the same format that we've done previously. But if you recall, we created a number of layers in the Marion project that we had done previously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this new layer that I just created. And instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in blocks from the Marion blocks, and I'm also going to bring in the layers from the Marion project. So if you can take a look up in here, I've got on my drawing tabs right here, I've got the Marion project open. It includes the blocks that I have in here. And if we take a look at their layers, we have all the layers that we had created previously. So we could save ourselves a lot of time. We're pretty content with the line weights and the line types for that. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and let's see how we can bring in the layers from this drawing into the main level in here. And we would have to bring it into each one of the drawings that we have open, in this case the constructs. So with the Marion here open and the main open in here, in other words, that shows me that they are open in here, there's two ways that we can access those layers and migrate them over to this drawing. So one of the things that we're going to do is, you could hold down the Control key and hit the number 2 on the keyboard, and you'll see that we get what's called a design center. Now this is called Autodesk Seek. In the old days it was called the design center. And if we take a look at it, you can see that we have got a number of open drawings in here. I'm going to go ahead and close this out right here so you can see at least the 3 drawings that we have open in this session. We had the McFadder-Marion blocks, the Marion drawing, and the one that we are actually going to be migrating the layers to is our main drawing. So what we want to do is we want to hit the little plus right here on the left, and what you can see here is on the menu that comes out, one of them is layers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on layers, and here what we have is we have all of these layers located right into there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, with my main open, okay, this is the drawing that I want to bring them into, and with my design center open, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of my layers right now, and all I'm going to do simply is click and drag into my drawing, and let's see what ends up happening when I did that. So let's go ahead and let's close out our center into here, and let's go here and let's see what we've got in terms of our potential layers. So now, as you can see right here, we have got all the layers that we created in the Marion are now in our Northern Home project. Now we are going to go into this and we'll probably be removing layers later on, because since we're using AutoCAD architecture, a lot of the items are going to be coming in anyways on their own layers, and we may not want to make some modifications, but we can do that later on, and eventually we'll get ourselves to a point where we can create a template file that we'll be accessing for layers, or even when we start AutoCAD architecture we'll be able to access it and not need to do that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, based on the markups that we did and the red lines, there's a number of things that I need to bring in, whether they're toilet fixtures, sinks, there's going to be appliances for the kitchen, and we're going to be using all of those layers that we now have available to do a lot of two-dimensional line work. So what I'm going to do is, since we are not going to be 3D rendering the inside of this house, we can bring in some simplified blocks that we're going to be using for our plans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to the Marion blocks. It's another drawing that I had open into there. You could have also gotten this directly from the Marion project. And I'm going to start selecting the things that I think I could use in this project. Now, I don't want to bring over any of the doors or any of the windows at this point, and that even includes the elevations. I want to focus on what I can use in terms of plumbing fixtures and appliances right here. So those are the only things that I'm going to go ahead and highlight. I'm doing a crossing selection. I'm going to right click with those selected, and I'm going to go to clipboard. I'm going to copy. Then I'm going to go back to my main level, and off to the side I'm going to clipboard and just paste my blocks right here. Now I have some options. I could either use these blocks, or, as I mentioned before, I can go to the content browser and begin to bring in and populate my drawing with those things. The other thing I know that I have now available is, if I go in here, I have all the layers that I can use available for me for the countertops, etc. So as an example, if I'm going to begin to do the countertops, I can use the A-case counter layer right in here, which I'm going to make my current layer, and I can begin to lay out features which I'm going to be modifying and adding appliances and other items. As an example, this should be on the A-case counter layer. When I first created it so I could place my door, I put it on my depth point layer. So what I need to do at this point is I need to modify that. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to my A-case counter layer, and I now have this in the proper layer. Now I can do that to a number of items. As an example would be here. Again, I had placed it temporarily on the depth point layer. There's another item in here for stairways that I can either create a new layer for it if it wasn't part of the Marion, since we did not have a stair onto there. But now what we can do is begin to take a look at our markups, and we can begin to bring in either some of our blocks right in here for our plumbing fixtures, or we can use our appliances in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with some of the kitchen counters, since I'm already on that layer. So I am just going to go ahead and start right here, and I'm going to go 2 feet over and bring that down. I'm going to repeat a line right in here. Now your method may be a little bit different, but I'm going to go ahead, in this case I'm just going to move it and move that up 2 feet. Our countertops should be about 2 feet out. Notice what I did it as 2 inches. I did not put my foot symbol in. I'm going to offset 2 feet. That looks better. And I'm going to fill it right here. So now with my countertop located right in here, go ahead and delete this. I can now create my opening in here that's going to allow me to go into the kitchen here. So it actually shows an opening of 3'5" and change from here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in a little while and go ahead and adjust that. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the other items that we can do in here. They've also got a line for the uppercase cabinets. Now if I was 3D modeling this, I would do this totally different, but since we're going to be doing no interior elevations of this, I'm going to go ahead and be expeditious and use two-dimensional line work to get this done quicker. Now if I had contracted, I could keep the contract for that, and I would do much more renderings depending on how the contract is written. So I'm going to go back to a case hidden. Okay, so I'm going to go that. Now that could represent upper also, the cabinets, but I think that's how we set this so that we could use it for both the upper and anything that might be underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and do a line from this case. I'm going to do mid between 2 points and make sure my ortho is on, and I'm going to stop just short of the window. Then I'm going to go ahead and go over to this point, repeat line mid between 2 points, bring that in, and I'm going to fill up these two. And bring this just to the right side, and go ahead and do the line. Now one of the reasons I'm not being so precise on this, and I'm just limiting it to either side of the window in here, is because there would be usually a set of shop drawings and a blow-up drawing of this. So we're not going to be dimensioning these hidden lines right here, which represent the upper cabinets. We're going to be doing that in some other cases. So let's take a look at some of the appliances that we can bring in. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy refrigerator. I like mine side by side, but this one might be a little bit too big. Make sure my ortho is on. Just want to make sure I've got more than enough room to put in my range right in here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to go with more of a standard one. Copy that one, and let's see what block this is. Properties, that's a block reference. No instance there of it. So if you run into a situation where you're not quite sure this is not identified correctly, you can modify that pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one. This looks like it was the refrigerator that was used, but if I have any doubt, I can then go ahead and go to my content browser, and when that comes up, I can go to my documentation tool catalog imperial, I'm going to go down to I did documentation. Let me go ahead and go back one layer. I actually want the design tool catalog, Imperial. That's the one I want. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see if we can find it under food service. There's my refrigerators. So there's a 31 by 28. There's another one right in there, top bottom refrigerator. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. I'm going to drag it into my drawing plane, and I'm going to place that in here. Now, the reason it started off as a hidden line is because I was in the A case hidden, and now you can see that this is the refrigerator right here, which I'm going to go ahead and move it and bring it into here. I think that one is sized a little bit better for this home. Rotate it. And then I'm going to place it here. I'm going to leave a little bit of gap between the side and the back so that we know that you can't actually press this right up against it. And what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and leave this going up like that, but I'm going to bring this counter top line around my ortho, and once again just stop a little bit short in there. I'm going to go back to my A case counter and draw a line in there. That seems a little bit too tight. I can always use my stretch crossing command and just visually move this on. Make sure your ortho is on whenever you do these things. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my range, except in this case I'm going to go ahead and show it as a cooktop also. So there'll be a it's a range with hood, and it's also going to have the burners on the top. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go and copy, or I can move this from here. Let's go to here, and I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to center it right on this space so I have pretty much the same amount of countertop on either side, and then I can move this back, again leaving a space behind it. And with my A case counter layer, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave a space where that countertop can go. So I'm going to trim, and trim that out of there. Now, in some cases, we would actually bring this further out to make sure that the hood covers that. We can use actually the same layer that we had, would be A case hidden, and we could probably just bring it about to here. Now, let's go ahead and let's start from the center points, or at least from that point to that point. I'm just going to give it a slight angle so that this goes out maybe to that point there, and I'm going to go repeat it. We'll go ahead and trim. Now, if you think that's too exaggerated, what you can always do is you can always just use the stretch crossing command and bring that back just a little bit. Make sure your ortho is on, and let's bring it about to here. Now again, this is just symbolic because in most cases we would do a set of shop drawings for this. Alright, let's see what else we've got. I'm going to stay with A case hidden. It looks like we've got what's called a Lazy Susan, which is a storage item right here in the corner here. So I can just do it from here, and I'm just going to draw an item to about there. And I'll bring it out toward the edge just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and using a guideline, I'm going to move it from here, take my ortho off, and bring it a little bit closer to the edge like that. And then I can go ahead and delete this item. I think that's looking pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and let's put in, looks like we've got a double sink with a dishwasher on the left and a trash compactor on the right. So let's see what we got. Almost any one of these could be used for the trash compactor. So let me go ahead and let's go to the appliances and let's bring in a double sink. I'm going to take this one, bring it down. I'll go ahead and rotate it 180 degrees. Put my ortho on. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead. Once again, I'm going to center it on the window. Let's just move it from midpoint. And I'm going to move it to the midpoint here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull it off the wall a little bit and closer to the front edge. Now, there's all sorts of different types of sinks that can be used on this, but this will suffice for now. Alright, so to the left here we're going to have our dishwasher, and to the right we're going to have our trash compactor. We got our Lazy Susan, our range is in there, our refrigerator is in there. Let's see what else we could do in here. Okay, let's go ahead and let's bring in a couple of more appliances. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy both of these and bring them into here, F8. And I'll go ahead and bring this one right from there to about there, and I'm going to go ahead and move this one from there to about there. Now, typically these would have an element in the front, which would be the handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add those to it if there was no block available for that. In addition to that, I may want to modify this block a little bit. Right now you can tell it's a block reference, so it's got a certain size attributed to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my layers here. It's going to be Make Objects Layers Current. I'm going to go ahead and change that. As you can tell, it's the A appliance layer. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw a rectangle that's going to represent the door. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to copy it over. Put my ortho on. Not quite going to the edges. And now I think that works as our dishwasher and our trash compactor located right on the right. I think we've got all our appliances. There's a few items we can still do in here, but let's go ahead and let's continue with some of the items that we need to put in here. Now, if you notice on the markups and on the red lines that it did not have the refrigerator in there. It had it as a hidden line. Let's just go ahead and keep it in there as an appliance that we're going to be showing. We don't need to show it as a future refrigerator by owner, so in this case we are going to be actually showing it. Alright, so what we want to do in here is we want to take a look at what we can do for our shelving in here. And so we probably, in this case, we can use a case against shelving right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and list it from the front right into there. And pull this over about another 4 inches out so we get some deeper shelves in there for the pantry. Locate it there. Alright, looks like we've also got shelving, and if you notice on the markups they have S and P. Well, that's old school. What it meant was shelf and a pole. So you would have a shelf and then you'd have a horizontal wooden pole across to hang your clothes on. Nowadays there's all sorts of systems, closet systems that go into it. So for now all I'm going to go ahead and do is with the AK shelving layer, I'm going to go ahead and indicate one line across. That's going to represent nothing but shelving. if I wanted to put anything else other than shelving, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this out 2 inches to there, and now I'm going to place another line here, okay, with the same layer. And this is one of those rare instances where I'm going to go ahead and override the properties of that line. I could create another layer, a case shelved rod on the top. So let's go ahead and let's do it that way. I'm not going to go override it. I'm going to actually create a second layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer in here. And let's see, right here, I'm going to call it A dash case dash SHLV dash, I'm just going to say rod with an underscore, just so we can have the 4 of them. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it on the cyan later, but I'm going to change my line type to hidden 2, and I'm going to leave it at 0.15 for now. So let's go ahead and let's make that our current layer. I'm going to close that out. Let's go ahead and change this, and we're going to go to our A case shelf rod, and there we go. Okay, this one, since it's a pantry, we're not going to put any rod to hang any clothes in there or anything like that. So, all right, let's take a look at what we've got in here. This is the powder room or the bath, so we're going to put a toilet here, and we're going to put a vanity located right there. So let's go ahead and copy, and we could get a little fancy if you wanted to. Let's go ahead and use that one, since this is where the guests would be. We'll go ahead and place that in there. That looks a little bit too big for the space, so let's go ahead and let's rethink that. I'm just going to go ahead and put a smaller one here. I'm going to bring it over and place it later, and I'm going to do the same thing with the toilet. So I'm going to use the elongated toilets. They're a little bit nicer. Again, that would be sort of a selection that you guys would have to go over. And I'm going to keep it slightly off the back wall. I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees and move this down to about there. That looks great. There's going to be no cabinets on that. Okay, let's get this guy just a tiny bit further out. Okay, that looks good. Take care of the stair, the fireplace we still need to do. Let's take a look at what we need to put in here in terms of our laundry room. We know that this last room we're going to be moving the furnace and the water heater down from here, but we also have attic access that we need to get here, and here we're going to do our washer dryer, and we're also going to be doing our laundry tub. So let's see what we've got in here. So this looks like this is a laundry tub. I'm going to bring that in here and place it down here. Rotate 90 degrees, and let's bring in our washer dryer. And copy these. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate these. I'm going to relocate them. So my dryer is going to go back here, and my washer is going to go here. Now it looks like things are going to get a little tight, but it looks like we're going to be able to fit this in there. Remember that I had made some adjustments to this setup. I'm going to go ahead, and this one I'm going to move flat against the back. It's going to be a plumbing fixture that's located there. And these I'm just going to move a little bit further to the back. This is something that you would need to be wary of in terms of the exhaust for the dryer, and for the piping and the plumbing that you're going to have for washer and dryer. Now this also shows either some upper cabinetry up into here, or some kind of a shelving. So I'm going to assume that we're going to do some cabinetry work across the top, and I'm going to carry it all the way across here. I want to make sure I'm in the right layer. I'm going to use this for a case, and I'm going to go ahead, in this case I'm going to go ahead and draw it here and move it over 12 inches to the left. So I've got upper cabinetry located right into there. I've even got it over the sink located in here to maximize the amount of storage space or space for cleaning equipment, etc. to go on there. Alright, so we're moving pretty quickly on this. Let's see what else we can do. We've taken care of most everything in here. Let's see if we've got a layer in here that we can use for our attic access. Now, if you recall, I've still got the Marion open in here. So if you recall, if I open up the Marion, that's exactly what we had happening right here. So I can sort of still use it as a guideline and see that there was an A roof access. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main. I'm going to go and find my A roof access layer. Right there. I'm going to make it my current layer. And it says 22 by 30. So I'm going to go ahead and do a rectangle. 22, 30. And let's see what happens. There we go. I can move that and locate it right into here. Now that 22 inches is kind of important because it's basically the space in between roof rafters or in between trusses if you were using trusses. So I'm going to locate it right into there, and that would be something that would be coordinated also out in the field. Now I'm going to go ahead and they show a diagonal cross in here. I'm not going to go ahead and show that. I think that's unnecessary. So let's continue. Now you're probably going to be seeing in the markups that there's a step down here, there's another step in here. We're going to take care of that on one of our subsequent videos when we start developing our slabs, which is a representation of our floor structure. It's not literally a concrete slab. In this case, it's going to be wooden. It's going to be floor joists and wood rafters for the roof area. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. We've got a crawl space, but we know that this is going to modify, and I've talked previously about our stairway. We're going to be doing this a little bit different. We're going to see what's going to be the best design to be able to use for this stairwell. So we'll be tackling that a little bit later, including whether we need this wall here or not. Let's go ahead and let's go to our fireplace. Now what I've done there is I've drawn a fireplace based on sort of what was shown in the markups. They gave us a distance here of 8 foot 6.5 and 3 foot 2 across this way. And I've got my 3 foot 2 across this way, but what is my distance in this direction? Now this distance is going to be tied into, if you notice, it's only 7 foot 4 as opposed to what they showed in the red lines and the marks. We need to adjust that because our support for this masonry fireplace is located in the basement, and we made modifications in the basement in order to be able to get corridor access and the doorways into our rooms, and also to have a cleaner look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my X reference temporarily as an overlay in here of the basement, so that we can make sure that this is going to align with the support walls down below. Now this is going to be a give and take. If you want to make modifications, if you want to do it a little bit different and get a larger fireplace, we can do that. I also think that I might even eliminate that barbecue that is in the dining area. I don't think that's really too applicable. We've got a nice kitchen right off of that. And that barbecue may or may not be something that we want to use. If we want to, we'll go ahead and draw it. You guys can do either one. So let's go ahead and let's see that our basement is located right in here. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Insert tab. I'm going to go to Attach. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the basement. It's going to add that drawing. I'm going to do Open. And the pop-up window asks me certain questions. So the scale is fine the way it is. I am set to overlay. If you were at attachment, you're going to want to change that to overlay right in here. Now insertion point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it at -9 feet. Now we previously discussed why we do that. I'm going to click OK. And as you can tell, I've got the basement that came out down below. Now also notice that it came in, let's see what layer it came in. It came in the roof access layer. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to change the layer that it's in. And I'm just going to go ahead and place it on layer 0 right there for that. Okay. So let's take a look at what we did in here. It looks like I had already made some adjustments. There is my fireplace. Okay. There is my X reference. So let me go ahead and open up the basement and see what we've got going there. Alright, so it looks like we've got 4 inches up this way before we get our support wall located right there. So let's go back to the main level. A couple things are not showing up there, so I have to be pretty careful in terms of what I'm going to do. So our distance from here to here, we want to make sure that this is going to line up right there. I also want to make sure I've got my Z, replace Z value on, so that I don't accidentally start snapping to the basement down at -9 feet. I want to keep things on the drawing plane, which is where our grid is located. Now, I've already brought that in. There is my XREF. It has all its own layers, and actually if you want to take a look at that real quick, we can open up our tab in here. Now currently I have it set to this right now is just our XREF layers. These filters in here come in very handy. So what we can do is we can put all. So it's got all our basement layers right in here. Notice they're prefixed, okay, with the path. These are all the other layers that we've created in here. Now if you don't want to see any of those layers, including any of the XREF layers or just the XREF layers, you click on the filter and there's just our XREF layers. We can also do all layers or all non-XREF layers. There's also all the used layers, okay, because we're still not using all of them. I like to either keep all or all non-XREF, and then when I need to look at my XREF layers, I go to that. So I'm just going to leave it at that right now. And I think I'm pretty well done with what I need to do for the basement. So I have two options. I can either unload it or detach it, or I can isolate it. Probably what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there, but I'm going to go ahead and unload it. So there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can click on it. I right click. I've got unload right here. So that's one way to do it. And there it goes. So now I know that this is the right size. Now what I got to find is the right layers. So let's take a look and see what I've got in here. So I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to look for A. Let's see if we've got something in terms of fire. There we go. So we've got an A fire, which is probably for the fireplace, and an A fire hearth for the hearth of the fireplace. So I'm going to start with that layer right in there. I'm going to explode that polyline that I had previously. And I'm going to remove that line from that point, and I'm going to change these to my A fire layer located right in there. So now I know I've got a pretty good access around in here, but I may not have enough room in here to be able to do my fireplace and my barbecue. If I wanted to pull this out, I would check what my clearances are here. I've got 4'2". I really don't want to get too much tighter in there. So I may just go ahead and say, hey, let's leave that barbecue out, and we can do something a little bit nicer with the fireplace in here. Now, once again, you have to be cognizant of how that affects other levels. So if we're going to be doing that in here, we have to also look at the upper level and see how we can modify it. So let's go ahead and let's start. I'm going to go ahead and, with that same, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a guideline right in here. And I could go and get some fireplace dimensions. Our markups and our red lines really don't give us too much information. All they tell us is information about C foundation plan for fireplace location, screen closable vent with 24 inches, within 24 inches fire block, and then it's just talking about a flush hearth. But let's say I want my fireplace opening to be 3 feet wide. So I'm just going to go ahead and offset this 1'6" and 1'6". That's a pretty good size fireplace. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this and pull this one out, probably 2 feet back to there. And what I'm going to do is fillet these. And delete this. Now, what I can also do at this point is, usually there's an angle to the walls here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to angle these in by just using my stretch crossing command right here. Grabbing those two. And if you notice, if I pull it in here, I'm going to go ahead and pull it in maybe 4 inches this way. And I'm going to do the same thing this way. And pull this 4 inches this way. Now, they show some hatching in here, but I don't have a layer which I have that I had in the Marion for any of that. So I've got a hearth layer. I'm going to go ahead and create another one, which is a fire dash hatch. So let's go ahead and let's go to our layers right here, our layers manager. I'm going to find a fire, just going to leave it on that. Go ahead and create a new one directly under it, and let's call it a fire. And we can call it pattern, or we can call it hatch, which is sort of what we've done in some of the other ones. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to change the color slightly so we can see what we're talking about. And I'm going to go ahead and let's just put that layer, 45. Do OK. And I definitely want my hatch to be a very thin, so I'm going to go to 00 or 0.05. Any one of those would be fine. And I'm going to leave it at the continuous layer. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I'm going to stay on my A fire layer, and I'm going to begin by taking this fire brick, and I'm going to offset it maybe 3 inches. Depending on the fire brick that you use, you could do 3 or 4 inches this way. And I'm going to fillet that. And fillet that. And I'm going to do this one just a little bit different. It also shows that we've got our fire brick coming in just at an angle in here. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to pull that over 3 inches this way. I'm actually just going to draw this at an angle so that it lays out perpendicular there. And perpendicular there. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And trim that out. Now yours may be a little bit different than this. I'm going to go ahead and make sure to extend this out to there, and that's looking pretty good. Now what I can do is I can draw my hearth, I'm going to go ahead and draw from this midpoint right in here. And my hearth I'm going to make a little bit bigger than the fireplace. So I'm going to go, let's say, 2 feet. And I'll set 2 feet this way. Okay. And I'm going to bring this out 18 inches. Now I'm doing this before I change my layers. So I'm also going to trim this out. And delete that. And I'm going to go ahead and change these two to a fire hearth. Right over there. And now what I want to make sure is that when I start hatching that I'm in the proper layer. So I'm going to go to HTCH. Those look pretty close to the same, so you got to be a little bit careful. And I'm going to go ahead and go up to the Home tab, the Draw. I'm going to go to my Hatch command right in here. And go ahead and hatch here. Obviously, it looks like it's a little bit too dense. I'm in the correct one, ANSI 131, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's try 12. It looks like it's still a little bit too tight, so let's go ahead and let's change this one to 18. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I can always change it later. Alright, I can always stretch this out too, if I really want this to go all the way to the edge, or make my hearth a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and move my hearth 6 more inches out this way. And this one I'm going to move 6 more inches out this way. And then the fire brick we're going to go ahead and do also with the hatch, but we're going to use a different hatch. So let's go to the hatch and let's just go down to ANSI 137 and click on that. It stayed at the 18. That looks perfect. Okay, and that looks great. Alright, notice that I left out the barbecue in this specific model that I did. I sort of concluded, I found what I had happening down below a little bit more important than that barbecue. I never really saw it as something that was that useful. So let's go ahead and leave this like it is for now. Alright, let's see what we got next. Okay, Bob. Looking at our markup, and we've got what we need in here, we've got what we need in here. I've got almost everything located here correctly. It shows a step down in here, but we're going to not have a step down. So let's go ahead and let's look at a couple of the openings that we have right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an opening in here. Now there's a couple of ways to do it. Here what we did is we actually cut the walls so that there is no header across here. Now we can take a look at that later if we want to. But we've also got an opening in here that I want to show the header. So it says it's 5 feet across. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to just put a line in here in the midpoint. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and go to the Home tab, under the Build panel, under the door. Now, as I mentioned before, I don't like using any of these doors, but we've got another icon there called Opening. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring it right here, place it. I'm going to change the size to what we're looking for. So I can go to Properties. 7 feet is fine. The width is supposed to be 5 feet. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 5 feet. And I'm going to go ahead and move it from its midpoint to the midpoint of the room, so now it looks a little bit better. Now I can go ahead and delete my guideline that I was using. And notice it came in its right layer. So if we go to the Home tab, it came in an A wall open. So it created its own layer. The only thing I don't like is the fact that it's a solid line. So what I want to make sure is I want to go ahead and go to my Layers panel, to my Manager, and I'm going to go down to A wall open. And I'm going to take a look at what we've got. That's fine, but continuous, I want to change that to hidden 2. And the line weight is way too heavy. It's 0.25. I'm going to go ahead and put that down to 0.15 and do OK. And let's see what we've got. Now that I've changed it in the layer, the next one that I create is going to be coming in with the right properties that I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and let's place another one here. I'm going to go back to the icon, place one here, and I'm going to place another one over here. So this one shows it as 4'9". So I'm going to go ahead and change that to. Go ahead and change that to 4'8", and I'm going to move it from here to that point there. That looks good. And this one I'm going to, let's see what we've got. I'm going to go ahead and stretch it so that it lines up here. And let's see what size we've got now. That looks pretty good actually. But let's make it an even number. Let's make it a 3'6". Now, if it jumps off into that direction, just go ahead and bring it down a little bit past, and then go ahead and move it again to where you want it. I'm going to grab it by that anchor, by that grip, and there we go. All right, that looks great. This is going to be smooth into here. I've got a couple things I'm going to make some changes to here coming up later with the stairway. That's going to be its own video, how we develop that stairway. And let's see if we had anything happening in here. Okay. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead and let's begin. Let's save it. Right in there. And let's go to the basement and see what we can do with the basement. So. What I can do is, if you take a look at all the layers that are here, you're still limited to those layers. So what I want to do in here is I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I could actually even go into our open main drawing and bring in those layers over to here. Now I'm not going to want to do that because I don't want to bring in my XREF layers either. So let's take a look at how we can do that. So I can do either Control D, or on the command bar down below I can type in ADC, and there we go. And here are the drawings that we have open. So there's the basement, there's the main, and there is, let's open up the main. Let's go down to the layers, and there you see all the layers that we've got located. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of those. I'm going to go ahead and drag onto my drawing, let go. And now actually if you went to the basement and opened that up and went to layers, you can see all the layers that have been created. So now we've got the same situation, except that we've got all our layers located in here that we can then access the same way that we did the last one. So let's go ahead and let's go to our red lines, and let's see what we've got for our basement level. Well, we're definitely going to want the furnace and the water heater coming in. So those are going to be appliances that are going to be brought in. We've got a couple more walls that we want to draw in here in a tub. We've got the same rod and post that we're going to show into there. So we're going to want to do those. And we've got over in here, everything else seems pretty straightforward. So let's begin. All right, so let's go ahead and let's find our casework. So we've got right in here, or A, shelving. Let's find our shelving. So we've got A, shelf above, and we have, let's see if I can find the A shelf layer right here. All right, so let's go to our layers. Click on that to open it up. And it's either going to be in the A shelving above, or we also did it in terms of the casework. So there we have A case shelving, which is what we want, and we have, let me see if we've got the other one located. So let's start with that one. Line. Right up there. Remove it about 2 inches out. And let's see if we've got our A case counter hidden, shelving, something above. Okay, looks like I cannot find that other one, so let's see what ended up happening. Let's go back to our main level, and we can highlight this, and that says it's a shelving rod. So it did exist in this one. Let's see where we've got it, AK shelf rod. So if they did not come in with the proper layer, you can actually just right click, clipboard, copy, hit enter, select it, then go back to the basement, clipboard paste, and once that's in there, we should have it located right here, and there it is. So there's a multiple number of ways to get this to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate this and move this guy over from there. This one I'm going to put right in the midpoint there, and I'm going to take it, grab it by its grip, and just go to midpoint or perpendicular at that point. So I've got that one located. Okay, and let's see what we've got. We've got the furnace and the water heater. Now, we don't know exactly the size of that furnace that's going to go in here. So we both have a water heater and a furnace. We would be looking at specifications for the right size for that. But for now, I'm going to make it about 22 by about 30 inches. Now, let's see if we even have a layer for that. So I think in this case, what we want to do is it's either going to be a appliance or it's going to be an electrical layer. So let's see what we've got in terms of appliances. So I'm going to go ahead and make it an appliance at this point, and we can always change it later. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go to my rectangle command, and I'm going to do shift, and I'm going to do 22, 30. Okay, that seems about right. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down to here. I'm going to move it about 4 inches off the wall. And I'm also going to leave about 10 to 12 inches here, and we'll explain that later on when it comes time to do our mechanical drawings. We're going to have a return air duct that's going through there. So now for the water heater, rather than go ahead and just draw, try to find a block for it, I'm going to go ahead and draw a water heater, let's say a 20-inch wide water heater, and I'm just going to move that and place that back here. So we have access here to access our furnace, and we also have access for our water heater located right there. So I think that's sufficient for now. Now let's go ahead and see what we can do in here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my A case counter, and I'm going to start right in here, go up 2 feet, come across. And notice I don't have any of my blocks here. So a couple of ways that I can do that. I can either go all the way back to the Marion, go to the Marion blocks, or I brought a bunch of them already into this drawing. So I can actually just take this, clipboard copy, enter, go back to my basement, clipboard paste. And now I have access to some of the other items that I'm going to be needing. So let's go ahead, and looks like I got another vanity located right there. I'm going to bring that here. got a tub here. Let's see what the sizes of these tubs are. This one looks like it's going to be high, so that's about a 30. Copy that corner there. And we show a small wall in here, so we'll go ahead and move this go down to let's move it back just a little bit. That looks good right there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy one of these 4-inch walls, and I'm going to bring it right from here to here, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull this all the way to there. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it an exact distance so that when we finish this with tile, we have a clean attachment of this tub to that wall. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to move this out about 2 inches. Let's make it 1 inch. I think 1 inch will be sufficient in case we have any bull noses or anything like that to deal with. And then I can just grab this and let's take it down to that point. I can then delete my guidelines. And now all I need to do is to put my toilet right there. So let's go ahead and let's just choose the same toilet. Okay, right there. And let's move this out. There we go. And there's our bathroom. And this looks a little bit too tight. Might be something that we want to take a look at in terms of changing the design of the house. But let's assume that this is what the architect wanted, and that should be sufficient. Okay, so we've got our water heater, our furnace, bathtub, toilet. We've got our shelf and rod. We've got our vanity. Now notice that I didn't bring in a 3D vanity. All of this is two-dimensional work in here. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and take care of the issues with the stairway once we have a clean design of the stairway, and we'll tackle the stairway separately. Okay, so it looks like we need a couple things that we didn't have down here. For example, we've got a bypass door located in here, which we already created one in here. So let's go ahead, and while you're doing things like this, you often see things that you have forgotten to do. So let's go ahead and place that right into there. That looks like that's going to work. And I could probably just mirror this. I go ahead and mirror it using mid between 2 points from this wall and this wall. Bring it up, hit enter, and it came right into place where it's supposed to. Alright, everything looks good. We've got that door, this wall we're going to locate. We've got a nice door there and here with enough access into it. Okay, let's see what else we can make some modifications in here. Alright, let's go ahead and save this. And let's go to the upper level now. I'm going to go ahead and clipboard this. Probably still on the clipboard, but I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to open up, go to my constructs. And let's see what we've got with our upper. Let's go ahead and open that up. Now, I want to double check a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and, since we've already done the clipboard, I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here for that. I'm going to want to do the same thing with the layers, but I just want to bring in the main level and see how it lines up with this. And this is something that I should have mentioned before. One of the first things you do, of course, is to make sure you're in the correct project right in here. Always double check that and make sure that you update it if it's not. If you had worked on another project before you came back to that one, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to go to the project browser and find the project. But another thing that often happens is when you bring in an X reference, you need to make sure that you're bringing in the right references from the right project. Just like you can run into a problem here with the current project, when you try to insert an X reference and you go to attach, a lot of times if you have worked on another project, you may have a construct here that did not apply to the project that you're on. Now, we happen to be in the correct project right in here, which is the 2020001 Northern Residence, but I have had instances where I had been doing a lecture using the Sarah project, and when I went to insert my X reference in here, I actually inserted one from a different project. Immediately I knew that it wasn't the right one because it didn't happen to be in the right location, but it's something that you have to be very, very careful with. So in this case, I want to do the main drawing. I'm going to do open. Once again, I want it as an overlay, and I'm going to put it in at -9 feet. I want to check a couple things, so that looks good. And if you notice, it came in exactly where I wanted it to. All right, so that looks good. All the items that we have are lining up. This, we may have to do some modifications to that, but everything else seems good. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take my main level, and I'm going to go ahead, right click, and this time I'm just going to detach. I really don't need to see it at this point. Let's go ahead and let's finish up doing our blocks and some of those other items. So first thing I'm going to do is, I brought in blocks, but I want to bring in the layers. So I'm going to type in ADC or Control 2, and I'm going to open up my main drawing again, go to layers, highlight everything from here to end, and drag onto my drawing, and I should have all of my layers located. So let's double check, and there we go. Looks like we've got all of them. This time the AK shelving rod went in also. So let's go ahead and let's do a couple things in here. Let's start with this bathroom here. So I'm going to go back to my red lines. I'm going to find my upper level. There it is. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and put in a bathtub. This is a double vanity located in there, a toilet, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the flue with the fire brick going up. And I'm going to modify that from what you see actually in the markups, because we got rid of the barbecue, so there's only need for one opening going up. And we can change the size of that. So let's go ahead and let's start. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find my 8-case counter. Go ahead and draw. I'll come in 2 feet this way. And just extend this out this way. Delete that line. I go out to my blocks. I'm going to get 2 of those. Vanities, put one here. Let's go ahead and rotate these, and let's place them. Now I may have to move these around a little bit once we put in our tub, but for now let's go ahead and move these. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our tub again. I'm going to copy it from here. Go ahead and just place it right here. Rotate it from this corner. Draw my ortho. Let's bring it down. Perpendicular. we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put a wall here. I'm just going to take any 4-inch wall and bring it to that point, and you could use a variety of methods to trim this out. Also to bring this one over. And then we're going to do the same thing in here. If you recall, we went ahead, I'm going to remove that from the selection set and move this out 1 inch. I can go ahead now and take my countertop all the way over to there. And let's separate our vanities so that's a little bit more usable. And bring that down to here. And the last thing we need in here is, let's go ahead and bring our toilet from there. Copy it. Rotate. Center to that center point. And again, separate it from the back wall. About 2 inches is sufficient into there. Now, if you think that this is a little bit tight in there, because we only have one of these now, one of the flues going out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we have a little bit more elbow room, and pull it out 4 more inches. And I'm going to recenter that by moving this down 2 inches. And that looks like I got a little bit more room to work with. Now let's go ahead and we're going to use the A-Fire, the same layer that we used for that. So let's find A-Fire. And this one's actually pretty easy. All I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle there. I'm going to offset it 4 inches in. Again, there are some restrictions on how far this needs to be, so check the code. It looks like they have less than that, so I'm going to go ahead and move it back to about 2. Delete that. And I'm going to go ahead and offset this, what we did previous slide. Do that as 3 inches, and we got 1 large flue. Then that's going up. Change my layer to A-Fire hatch. Go back to the draw. Find the layer that we're going to be using there, which was the ANSI. And let's make this match what we had before, which was a scale of 18 onto there. And let's go ahead and make this. Looks like I grabbed a little bit too much. Let's hatch that up. And hit escape. And there we go. Alright, so we've got this bathroom pretty well set up. Let's go ahead and we may want to move this window over. So I'm going to do it a set amount. Let's say I move it over 12 inches. Located there. I think that looks a little bit better. We got some things that we want to do in here, so we're going to have some shelving and rods. We're going to be able to bring those layers in also. Then we've got a bidet and a toilet. So let's go ahead and let's copy that. And let's bring that into this toilet down here. Place that right there. Place that right in there. And then I'm going to make both of them about 2 inches off. Cool. There we go. And this is going to be a shower. So we're going to be using pretty much the same layers that we used in the Marion. I'm going to go double check what those were. We've also got a vanity here that we want to do, and we have a countertop here that we're going to be putting a tub in. So let's go ahead and let's do a counter, a casework counter. Change the layer to that. Bring this across straight there. And I'm just going to go ahead and move this up 2 feet. Bring in both of my vanities from here. so about 12 inches in this direction. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go to A, case hidden. And there seems to be a knee space underneath and a drop down. So I'm going to go ahead and do the knee space first. And I'm going to make that about 20 inches wide. Then I'm going to go ahead and offset this maybe 1 inch over. And let's make it 2 inches. Might be a little bit of an exaggeration. Let's go ahead and move this over 2 inches, 2 inches, and change these to countertop, a case counter. And then we can go ahead and get rid of this one. Now, exactly how you draw this may be a little bit different, but again, as you design these, if you get the ability or the change the design, I'm sure you guys would come up with some great stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the platform where our tub is going to be located. So I'm going to do that at 4 feet right now. That leaves me sufficient room. I'm going to go ahead and bring in this tub. From that point to there, and then back down a specific amount. I'm going to go ahead and do this one about, let's go and do that about 3 inches down. Okay, that looks great. The only thing left is going to be the shower and the shower door, so I've got to place that in. I've got some rod and a shelf that I want to do, and I could do that a couple of different ways. I could actually bring it in from the other drawing. If I wanted to go into the main level or the basement level, I can do that, or I can just go ahead and here I can do a case shelf. I'm going to draw that right here. Do another one here, and I'm going to do that one right in here for the linen. This one out 4 inches further out. That, and then for this one, I'm going to move it 2 inches out. And this one, I'm going to move it 2 inches for the door. And I'm going to go ahead and go to a case rod shelf. That location, and the same thing here. So again, we're not going to have any in that one right there. Alright, so let's see what else we have in here. We have a skylight here that we don't have. I don't think we have a layer for it, so we could probably use a hidden for that. It looks like this is pretty well complete. This is pretty well how we like it. We may want to mark this up as an HVAC chase, but for now we're pretty good. We've got our spa, we've got our vanity. Let's go ahead and let's put in some more elements in here. So this time I'm going to go ahead and go to polyline, and I'm going to mark this off like that. And I'm in the AK shelf rod, so this is going to represent the rod, so I'm going to offset that 12 inches. I'm going to offset it again 14 inches. That's going to represent the shelf. I'm going to delete what we're using there, and then I'm going to take that one and I'm going to change it to its proper layer. So I'm going to go back to AK shelving, and there, that's located right in there. That looks pretty good. Okay. And of course, you know, there's a lot of closet systems that you could end up fixing at that. All right, so all this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and let's do a couple of things. We need our attic access here also. And that's also 22 by 30. We're going to locate it right there. And we're going to worry about our stairway and our railing in a later video for here. But I think this looks pretty good. Let's see what we had in the Marion for the shower. We're going to follow pretty much the same procedure. So let's see what we had. We had here, we had a door shower, and here we had a wall interior curb. So I could just set it up as a wall curb, since we're not using interior or exterior, we're just using the a wall. We could leave it at that if we wanted to. So let's see if that's even available for us. So let's look at our layers. So we have an A wall interior curb. We go ahead and use that. And go up to there. Offset this 4 inches. I'm going to go back to the Marion and see how we did some of the other items. So here we have a floor fixture, or P floor fixture. Okay, that's for the shower, and this was a door shower. So let's go ahead, and I could actually clipboard this if you wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clipboard, copy. Rather than having to redraw from scratch, I can go back to my upper. I'm going to clipboard paste right here. I'm going to mirror this and erase source object. In this case, yes. Actually, that was not correct. I wanted to flip it this way too. Erase source object, yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's move this guy. I'm going to grab it by the midpoint here and go to mid between 2 points right here. I'm going to go ahead and stretch this, starting with this guy right here. And I'm going to place it sort of in the middle. Then I can grab this one. From there to there. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch to P floor fixture right in here. I'm going to go ahead and draw something right in here. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and I am going to go ahead and put a shelf back in here, or a seat. So all I'm going to do is take that one and move it right over here and make a seat that's about 12 inches deep in the back. Let's go ahead and place that there, and now what I can do is just go ahead and let's finish this up. Go from here to there. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else besides the skylights that we need to do. We've also got our one attic access, and we've still got our stairwell issues that we need to resolve. So let's go ahead and finish that up. I'm going to go to the right layer, which would be we can do it as a roof hatch. Actually, that's for the hatch. So let's see, a roof access. So let's go ahead and let's do that for the attic access. And I'm going to go ahead and do 22, 30. And I'm going to place this where they show it. Place it sort of centered right there. And I'm going to go ahead and do the two skylights. Let's see, we got one 24 by 24 and the other one is 24 by 36. I'm going to leave it as a roof access for now. So we could create a layer for it later on, but let's go ahead and let's do this the right size, 24, 36. And then the last one that we did was 24, 24. So let's go ahead and let's move these. Let's start with this one. We'll move it to the center point in here. And I'm going to move it back just a little bit. Maybe not as much as they show in the drawings there, but let's go ahead and let's put in our F8, and I think I'm going to move it over about 4 inches out that way. And then this one right in here, I'm going to see if I can place it, and I'm going to move it over maybe about 4 inches that way. That looks almost centered on that space. That's another way that you could do it. And we're going to relocate this a little bit later on, but let's go ahead and let's bring it in somewhere around here. Okay. Give it one last review. Let's take a look at this. That looks pretty good. Now once we have all of that and you don't think that we're going to be needing any of these, you can go ahead and delete these so that they're not cluttering up your drawing. But for now, let's just go ahead and leave it. In case we want to make any changes to any of the specific fixtures, we don't have to hunt for them again. But of course, we are going to get rid of those at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and save my drawing. So the upper is saved. Let's go ahead and open up our basement. We're going to go ahead and do this exact same thing. We're going to go ahead and move this out of the way. Give it another review for some of the items that need to be changed if we need to. That's looking okay. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'm going to go to the main. And I'm going to give it a review. We've got our attic access there. Okay, this is looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And what we're going to be doing in our next video is we will be creating the floor structure. We're going to be using a slab command. We're also going to be doing roofs. So with that one video, we're going to be able to almost complete the modeling with some exceptions, but you'll be able to see the model as it goes together. Thank you.